Yeah.
Even though that put me back in a position where I had to pick up all of his slack, it was the best, one of the best moves I ever made because it helped me overcome my fear of letting someone go. And the crazy thing is,
Yeah.
we're still friends to this day. That guy got a job with another company that was a better fit, where he could show up at 10 a.m. and still get the job done. And so it ended up being a
Right.
huge blessing for everybody. So whenever I tell somebody, if you know you have to let someone go, just trust the process. Know that it's going to be better for that person after you let them go. And everybody on the team's going to be happy. It's the right move, you know?
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now. And welcome back to STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Andrew Dixon with us today, and I'm excited for the conversation. I know Andrew. I've worked with Andrew. So we got a lot to talk about, and you're going to get the benefit of all this. But as we always do, our continuing STS tradition, Andrew, no one knows Andrew like Andrew. So Andrew, bring us up to speed, give us a little backstory, and we'll get into the conversation.
Nice. My wife might know me better than myself, but I'll give it my best shot here. So I'm in my mid-40s. I've been an entrepreneur since I got released from a job in 2008, 2009. Yep, 2008, right when the bubble busted, if you remember that the real estate bust back then. So I was out on my own, cutting grass, pressure washing, cleaning gutters. Man, I had the trimmers out, just doing my thing, trying to, make some money to pay the bills. One thing kind of led to another. I finally got to work with a guy who was kind of also entrepreneurial minded, taught me a couple things. Really, the main thing that he taught me was that about taking risk. So I was always kind of corporate America, do what the boss tells me. But then this guy's like, no, you can actually go out and you can secure your own customers. And so that's when landscaping, clean outs kind of took over. So I did that about 9 years. And then there was a fade, if you will, or a transition into pest control, probably towards the last couple years. I had customers asking me if I could spray for bugs, if I could do it, because it's kind of all connected in some way or fashion. And before you know it, man, it's almost 50-50 landscape, pest control. I got my license for both, XYZ. And eventually I sold the landscaping part of the business and went full tilt into pest control. So now the last, I'd say 5-6 years, it's been full-time pest control.
That's awesome.
So, Dixon Pest Solutions.
How'd you find yes, Dixon Pest Solutions. We'll have that in the show notes.
That's right. I know. You got to throw that out there. I was like, come on, man, throw it out there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'll get to it a few times. Drew, so the transition when you sold the landscape company, that's always a big thing for people. Like people will start like you did, right? It was out of necessity.
Uh-huh.
08, 09, I lost everything, had to restart myself, right? So I had to figure things out. That in itself is a difficult transition. But now you've built, for a number of years, you built a landscape company. You start to transition, start to see this pest solution avenue. It starts to grow. Now you're going to make the jump, So what I call it is the Spider-Man. You got web on one thing and you don't let go of that till you got your web on another
That's
one.
right.
So now you had your web on the other one, like, okay, time to let go. But how was that transition in the beginning? So say first 12 to 18 months when you went full time in the pest solutions.
Yeah. So interesting part of that is I had a young guy that was my lead lawn care provider. He was kind of a supervisor. I had 2 crews, wasn't anything crazy. And basically, to make a long story short, I actually sold him the landscaping side. He couldn't handle it, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was premature. I don't know if he had life issues happening, but I had to show up at his house and basically be like, yo, man, old customers are blowing me up. And I love the guy. I really wanted to serve him. I'm like, what's going on, man? Like he was gangbusters, just full energy, professional work. Really one of the perfect people you would want to pass on the business to, right? And I set up a payment plan. We worked it out, and I had a little interest on there just to bonify it. It wasn't like I just gave it to him, and he was making his payments. And I think what happened is he was used to having direct supervision in a sense, like he was still going out on his own with another guy, but his helper or his assistant was still coming to me directly, if that makes sense. There wasn't a clear chain of command, so to speak. So when he got put in that leadership position, maybe it got to his head. Again, I don't know where it happened, but he lost two guys within like a month. They just did not really want to work for him. And I think he got extremely depressed. I think he started recognizing the challenges of keeping mowers up and going. And, that's a big part of landscape, man, keeping the machinery up and going. And I show up at his house, man, all the mowers, there's like four, I think, riders at least. We had push mowers and stuff, but they all have flat tires, man. Not kidding. Every single one has a flat tire sitting in his driveway. And, two of them aren't even on a trailer. They're just sitting in the driveway. The trailer's off to the side. And I knock on the door, and thankfully he came to the door. I couldn't tell you if I had texted him ahead of time. I can't remember all the details, but I was just like, man, what is going on? He's like, I don't know, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. And he just kept saying, I was like, listen, dude, I was like, do you want me just to take this back? Do I just need to buy this back from you? He's like, yes, please, please, please. And lo and behold, I took it back from him, man. And so once I reestablished, my involvement, I had realized he lost probably easily our number one customer. We had a big neighborhood that was just every week we were on that site. And once he lost that, I think it kind of just started. Really happened when he lost the guys, to be honest with you. I still was in touch with one of those guys, but he ended up, I didn't even bring him back, man. He was in so much emotional distress. I actually found him a job helping out a maintenance crew for a management company. And he thrived there. I lost touch with him at that point, but I know he's not still there, but I know he was there for at least 2 years. And so he wasn't like a helper, but he still was able to get into kind of like, I don't know what that's, maybe a supervisor on site kind of thing. So it was better
Right.
for him to transition that. So needless to say, now I have this landscape business back. He's already lost a couple of the employees. He's lost some of the bulk of the business. I actually intentionally condensed it down to something that was more manageable for me and one crew. So the one crew would run full tilt, and then I was kind of going back out doing pest control and landscaping. I was just going back and forth, back and forth. And I would say, again, it's kind of foggy, man. I'm trying to think. I would say after 6 months, after a good season, towards the end of the season, I would say, because I probably got it back in November, maybe, I'm thinking, because I remember leaves were kind of heavy at that time. I had got it to a point where I was ready to sell it again. And this time I was going to sell it turnkey. No payment plan. I see you, don't want to be you kind of thing. And this gentleman was moving down from Ohio, and he ran a landscape company up there. He sold that. He was looking for like a seed start. Because again, it had basically got down to one crew and a little bit of stuff I was doing. And
Right.
thankfully, I mean, dude, it was turnkey, man. We drove around, looked at a lot of our accounts. He assessed all the equipment that we had, and by God's grace, man, it was a pretty quick transition. The one thing that I remember being a hiccup is that part of our agreement, and I don't know if it was in the contract. I don't think it was. The contract was more just basically financial, right? But between me and him, but there wasn't really anything between him and my customers. And so I had asked him verbally, hey, man, can you at least just finish out the season without going up on the prices? I can't make him do it because it's not in the contract, right? But it was more of like, hey, man, this is a friendly transition. Go up on your prices next season so people understand. Well, I kid you not, man. He did not wait. He went up on his prices in 2 weeks. And the customers, I didn't get as many phone calls with customers that I did previously with the young man that worked for me, but I know the new owner showed up at my house and came up on me while I was digging. I was actually digging a drainage system around my house. So I was running my diverters underground to get the water out. And he came up, hey man, and he's getting up. He thinks I'm coming behind him and talking to some of these customers. So he's kind of irate. And I found out he went up on one of my customers, so much so that the customer told him that he wasn't going to pay him a dime because he did not agree to pay him that amount of money. And this guy showed up at his property and the owner came out with a handgun. Kid you not, man. This is the conflict that's happening. And I'm just sitting here thinking, should I have been more clear with that on the transition? Or is that just kind of that guy's scenario? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's always, there's always something, right?
Yeah.
It's never a perfectly smooth transition. Sometimes it is, but we learn from that stuff, and I think a big thing with your lead guy in the beginning, when he bought the business from you the first time, it's a great reminder for people that not everyone is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Not everyone is a, top leader.
Yeah.
We'll call it C-suite for lack of a better term, right? Because it's a different person. Just like a lot of entrepreneurs, owners aren't managers. I am not a manager. You don't want me managing people. Okay, because I'll have them by the back of the neck like a dog that just soiled the carpet. Okay, I mean, I'm like,
right. Get out here. Yeah.
So I'm not a manager. Yeah. I understand my limits. So, but it's really important. I like what you did. Like the second time around, do it turnkey. But now you learned even with that. Okay, I got to talk to them about that. If that's one of my wishes, don't raise the prices, because I'll tell you, most new owners are going to come in, and the easiest number one way, there's two ways to raise profit, pure profit, 100% profit. That's raise your prices or cut your costs.
That's right.
Okay. Both of those go right to the bottom line. So he's coming in and, whatever you thought was a good price, I remember my dad telling me, he'd ask me how much I was charging for a water feature I'm building for someone. And I tell him, they pay that much? I go,
nah.
Yeah, Dad. They can't do what I do. Okay, so
that's right.
I mean, they never complain. They don't think they pay me enough.
That's right.
So there's always you got to find what the market will bear. That's a good test.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with real estate too. I'll look at a house. I'm like, oh, that house is probably $350. It's like $525, but that's what people will pay.
Right.
It's what the market will be willing to pay. So the one thing I remember, I reassured that guy, the buyer, was like, listen, man, I'm not talking to any of these people. I was like, I wish you success. I do feel like I'd maybe put my previous customer base at a disadvantage, right? Maybe that would have been better for them if I would have put something in the contract for that. The funny thing is I actually continue to do pest control for that guy. The guy who pulled the handgun. He's from Jersey. I mean, he just don't play around. And we later laughed about it. But I just remember thinking, like, how can I make it a win-win-win? And again, we've talked about this in the past, Richard. I'm not like, it's not really in right now to sell the business that I'm currently running, right? But that's one thing I definitely would consider if I was to sell,
Right. Yeah, it's important to know, we talked about it a lot, like what's the end game? Like going out and really figuring out what your end game is. Where do you want to go with this? What time? And you've got your hand in a few different things. You got options. And when you get your business squared away, it gives you more options.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you said, with a 2-crew landscape business, that's a small landscape business. The challenge, what I always found, Andrew, because I did landscape, I've done all that stuff, right? You either got to be small like that, 1-2 crews, or you got to be big and have 10 or 20 crews.
Yep. That's
the guys with 3 to 5 crews, because you can't keep enough work coming in to keep everyone going. It's really difficult. So if you're listening, you're thinking about landscaping, or you're in it, like you got to kind of decide. I went, my little tagline was, we're the special forces of water feature building.
Yeah, nice.
We do a lot with a little, right? We come with a few guys. I got the right machines. I got the tools, and we do in 2 days what other companies take a month.
That's right.
I mean, that's how effective we were. So again, margins were great, all that kind of stuff. But you got to understand that. That's a good takeaway for everyone to really you really got to look at where you're going and what you have to manage.
Yeah.
Right.
That jump is big, right? Man. In the service business, when you go from 1 or 2 crews to 5 to 10, that is what they say statistically is one of the biggest crushing points. Because like you said, either you're growing so fast that you can't actually give good service and you start to choke out, or you try to go big too fast and you're over leveraged and you choke yourself out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Because
that's a hard jump, man. Hard jump.
yeah, because here's the thing, there's growth and there's scaling. Okay. They're two very different things.
Yeah. True that.
Growing,
Okay.
growing costs money, lots of money when you grow, right? Scaling, you're duplicating, right? All your systems are built. You've got vehicles, right? So yes, there's an expense, but nothing like growth. Growth is hard because you have one crew, you want to go two, that's grow, right? Buy more mowers, get this. But there's a big difference in the growth and the scale. You know, when someone comes in and say you want to franchise something, right? They come and say, okay, are you at 2 locations, 3, 7? Okay. You know, Culver's, the custard place, burgers, they got about 700 or 800 locations, right? When they started here in Wisconsin, they had one store for like 7 years. 8 years.
Wow.
They wouldn't open another one. They perfected their system. Then they started one store, store. And they usually promote from within. They sell from within.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll be there as a GM for years and then you'll get your store now. That's how it works. Right. But they have 700 plus locations, maybe more than that now.
Yeah.
But
they're bumping down
that principle
here,
of perfect. Right. Yeah. They're well up here too. Obviously we're Wisconsin, but
yeah, so there's probably twice as many.
Yeah. Right. So, but they really had to perfect the system, right? Everything, just like McDonald's did the same thing. Anyone who's got, you know, hundreds of locations, they've really perfected the system, and you have to take the time in the beginning with that. That's what people don't want to do. Like, yeah, you might have a great idea. Yes, everyone will want it, but you haven't built it to scale. Because the scale is what you need, not the growth. You know, so once you get to 2 or 3 and they're all humming, whether it's a gym or whatever you've got, people want to see that is it duplicatable to the finest degree. I can go to each one and have the exact same experience every single time.
Yep.
You know, now you're prepared to scale. So that's really good stuff. So let's talk about now when you got going with the pest solution stuff. Moving that, I want to talk about the number one problem we all have in every business.
I already know where you're going with this.
Starts with a P, and it goes, people. Okay. That's our, it's 2 things. It's our greatest asset and it's our weakest link. Right. And you found that. That's why I want to talk to you about this, because you've been through your share. We were working together.
Man.
We were, you know, I've seen the changing of the guard, so to speak, a number of times.
Yeah, man.
Right. But let's walk us through that a little bit. Take us into little chunks, you know, where it was in the beginning, you know, and how you kind of ironed it out and where you're at now. I know nothing's perfect, but you've got it pretty solid.
Yeah. Well, it started in landscaping is when I first got my taste of, you remember Craigslist back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah. That's where I was basically going fielding for people to help me. And man, I mean, I just got an array of guys that it's hard enough to go out there and take care of the customers and to do the labor, you know what I'm saying? But to transition to trusting someone to do those things and finding the right people to fill the gap. I mean, it took years. Again, this is just my experience. But I finally, right before I got it to the young guy, I had 3, maybe 4 Hispanic guys who were really humming. There was much less complaining. That's when I first got I'll be honest with you, that's when I first saw it kind of work. You know what I'm saying? It was like a little glimpse, because for years it was not working. It was guys coming in on drugs, guys calling out, you know, for alcohol problems, guys showing up and making racial slurs at customers. I mean, man, I went through it, man. It was just one after another and after another. And some, you know, some of the Hispanic guys were also in some of those avenues, right? But I had a couple guys, and one of them I'm still actually good friends with today. That's where I saw kind of like someone who has a work ethic, you know, someone who's like, hey, we're going to get after it today. We don't need to talk about all this stuff, or we don't need to be distracted by all this stuff. And that's where I got my first taste of, like, at the end of a hard day, we'll grab some food and we'll be able to kind of hang out, right? You know, maybe kick the soccer ball around, because I play soccer. They played soccer. We kicked the ball around, right? We'd eat, you know, sweet bread, like the panderia stuff, you know, and that was fun. That's when I kind of got a taste of it. And, you know, the main reason I transitioned was I love people. I love the customer base. And I found that pest control fit my desire, so to speak, with more interpersonal relationship. There's some interpersonal relationship in lawn care and stuff like that, but there's a whole lot more in pest control, right? You're dealing with the inside of people's homes. There's a little bit more transparent, like you got to get into sensitive spots and talk about people's fears and stuff like that. So as I was making that transition, like I said, we got it away. Now I'm trying to find people for the pest control side, right? And again, going back to I was still used to Craigslist, hoping that I'm going to find the right guy. And again, started out the same thing. Guys who wouldn't show up, making excuses. And no offense to the veterans, I had guys that were, veterans, and they were coming in and they had discipline issues, And then, okay, so I'm definitely not doing Craigslist anymore, right? It's starting to fade technology wise, honestly. Remember, like there was a point where it kind of lost this luster. So now I'm trying to find people through friends and family. All right. And that's kind of where you came in. Is I had hired a friend of a guy from a church friend. And then I hired one of my, we'll call them vendors, someone that I use kind of as a subcontractor for like squirrel repairs and stuff like that. I had hired his brother, and great guys. But that's when we got to the point where I was like, now there's like a personal connection, right? And so I'm thinking like, well, I know these people in a roundabout way, right? And it's still not working. And that's basically, and I'm trying to think, when you came into this scenario, you had basically said, this guy needs to go. And again, if he's watching this podcast, he might know who he is. I don't know. But I remember thinking of all the interpersonal biases, like, man, like I know his brother, and some of my customers like him, but he's not showing up to work until 10 a.m. when he's supposed to be there at 7:40, and it's like I'm making up all these excuses. I don't even realize that I'm dragging the way I'm dragging. And I just remember I was like, I had to get out of my comfort zone. I had to do it. Yeah. Even though that put me back in a position where I had to pick up all of his slack, it was one of the best moves I ever made, because it helped me overcome my fear of letting someone go. And the crazy thing is, we're still friends to this day. That guy got a job with another company that was a better fit, where he could show up at 10 a.m. and still get the job done. And so it ended up being a huge blessing for everybody. So whenever I tell somebody, if you have to let someone go, just trust the process. Know that it's going to be better for that person after you let them go. And everybody on the team's going to be happy. It's the right move, Yeah,
I think with that, Andrew, it was, and you need sometimes, in your case with me, it's the outside eyes.
Yeah.
And come in and see it like right away, because you get close.
That's right.
And that's one of those struggles in the entrepreneurial journey in the beginning is we love our guys. I mean, they're good dudes. They're all working. We all want the same thing, really. We probably want a little more, a little different, because we're the owners. We got more vision on what we're going to do. But the reality is, I love my guys. I mean, 10 years, I had the same guys for 10 years.
Wow.
They were the best work. I mean, we were just family, I mean, it was hard when we ended that, when I had to, right? I mean, I had to go have my last cup of coffee with these guys, and I haven't talked to them in 15 years.
Yeah. Did you tear up a little bit? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, dude, it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were, the homeowners we work for, so we're doing a water feature in the backyard, whatever, they would tell me when it's over and I'm getting my final check, they're like, it's just amazing to watch your guys work. One guy's whistling. They don't even talk to you. Everyone's got their job. They all just do it. It's like, it's amazing. That was not once or twice. That was all the time. Yeah. Right. And it's just,
that was the culture.
When you have people like that, right. Trained them, taught them, and then I could let them work. Just like you had to get to this point too, because in your business, it's both of ours at that time, they're people dependent, right? You don't have a service business is people dependent, just hands down. So everyone's going to have their element of these issues, but let's step into now, we had the wrong guys. We got to get rid of the wrong guys. Right. And it is difficult. Like you said, you had to really experience that, and it's friends and family and all that kind of stuff, and we do what we got to do, right? We do what we know. But once we learn, like, maybe we need to go look somewhere else, because one of my things, and I think we used to talk about this a lot, right? You want to hire the employed, not the unemployed.
That's right.
Okay? We want to find someone who's actually already working, and we want to take them, or if they're looking at it, they're keeping their job while they look for another job. I like those people. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because the unemployed are unemployed for a reason. But now you went through a few iterations, right? You're systemizing a lot of your business so these guys have an actual game plan when they get to a site, right? Because every site you've got, everything from termites to rodents, right? And whatever else is in between. You're the expert, not me on that. I just squash bugs. That's all I know about them.
Kill them. Kill them all.
And hope my cat eats the mice, So
that's right. That's right. Just don't feed them.
I try to teach my cats. I said,
keep them hungry.
I tell my cats, like, you're playing too much with the mice. Just kill it and get to another one. That's all you got to do. Okay.
They're just trying to show out, man. That's their job. They want to show out.
I know. They're just they need to work out too. I get it. I totally get it. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Well, I was going to say the big transition was when you walked me through. I got the steps out of order, right? I was trying to take the people to create the culture, and you helped me flip it. I was like, what is the culture actually going to look like at Dixon Pest? And we created, I can't remember what it was called. Was it a storyline where we actually took time to create kind of like a fictional story what is that called?
Strategic vision.
Yeah, okay.
Strategic vision.
That's right. And it included, the kind of customer you were looking for. It was including like kind of how everything went down from beginning to end and the experience and what the technician did to provide that experience. And though it's just kind of the exercise is really what got my mind churning, right? It actually started helping me think about really the vision of what Dixon Pest was trying to do. And so that exercise alone really helped me make a decision that was going to make 1,000 decisions. You know what I'm saying? And so with saying that, me and you put together a whole new job ad, right? A job posting. It was completely different than anything else I had ever done. And I actually went the route of paying for, like, I use ZipRecruiter again. This isn't like a ZipRecruiter ad, but they were the means, in which kind of like it's a more efficient way to seeing where potential teammates are, right? Like, do they have a current job? Where have they worked before? What is this? What is this? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, that was one of those things where I was like, I started getting a little bit better quality. I was able to hone in, and we actually did this as well. We honed in on the interview process. So here we go. We're starting with the culture. We're starting out where are we going to go to find people, and now we're going to say, okay, now that we found people, how are we going to make sure that they're a good fit? Again, there's no perfect system because people can get through all the stages. Right. But as we walk through all that, not only does it work better, but it actually gives me more confidence too. Because you have to understand when you've gone through, man, I don't want to exaggerate, 40 to 50 guys that some are there for one day, some are there for 2 weeks. Man, I bet you it's 70 or 80 now that I think about it. I like the amount of guys that show up for 1 hour and I got to take them home. You know what I'm saying? And I have so many stories, man, just story after story of just mayhem, like complete circus stuff with people on the job. And the crazy thing is, Richard, is not only is it benefiting me from a confidence level, but these guys, they actually know what they're getting into. So it's actually a better expectation. And so again, there's no guarantee, but that is when I felt like things started making more sense and we were able to start making more things happen. I still do, I still get nervous, so to speak, when it comes to, I call it employee teammates retention. Because not only does that system work, but there's also a continuation of that system, right? To keep things clicking. And so I would say after me and you spent that time is when that was the turning point. Right.
I think for the audience, just to know, and everyone's different this way from an owner standpoint. Andrew everyone thinks they're high integrity. I'm just going to say, no one say I don't have integrity. That's how I do business. But I'm saying you have a level and expectation of the operation, the level of integrity your people on the team bring, because again, they're in people's homes and all this stuff.
Right.
that whole package is, and I'm not going to say it's unusual, but you've really maintained that standard. It's a standard, right? We all have different levels of standards, but yours is very high. And some people don't like that because they're going to go through a lot of what you did. A lot of people, but the key is they didn't have the filter to get the right people in front of them when it was time.
Absolutely.
Right? They're just thinking everyone's got good character, right? We call it calling character and competency, right? We're looking for those three things.
That's right.
But I'm telling you, I have really, really great clients, okay? And most of them are similar to you. And we're trying to operate at a character level that a lot of people don't seem to have. Their character, right? Like that's the things they do when no one's looking.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Because that's what you need. Okay. They're out at someone's home, unsupervised. They're one-man deals, right? They're out there. So I just wanted to emphasize that because it's an additional challenge to your type of business. And there's other people with those kind of service businesses, and you got to know it.
You mind if I add something else? So not only do I need it, but they need it. I tell the guys, this is part of the reward. When you are doing your job and you withhold your character, when you're in a crawl space, when you're no one's looking, actually everyone's looking now with cameras, but if they think no one's looking, like you actually can put your head down on the pillow and sleep much better. You are actually proud of the work that you do. And then the third factor is this is what people need too. Like our customer base, they're tired of having people show up to their house that they can't trust. Why is there so many cameras out there these days? Because the trust level is on an all-time low. I was actually reading an article and they were saying that trust is going to become the new currency, if you will, of the service business. Right. People are looking for companies they can trust. And so at the end of the day, when you operate in that level of integrity, though you're right, it's a huge challenge. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of disappointment, but man, the reward on the other end is so worth it. Just like when you were just sharing about your guys being on the job and a customer comes up to you and they're like, man, this is unusual. All these people are moving in a way that is so like, it's almost easygoing, but the results are professional. Right. And so that's the tension that I try to tell the guys. I'm like, hey, listen, we want to have it to where we're not stressed out, but yet we're putting out a product that is unusual or professional, So yeah, I thought that's right. Yeah, that's like the main part of business. I mean, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really should be. If you're driven by that, which you are, right? I was, that is, those outcomes are what we're working for. Those particular that feedback we get from our clients, okay? Yeah. Because when you talk about trust being number one, it's the know, like, and trust, right? That was kind of the key phrase. Before someone do business with you, they got to know you, they got to like you, and they got to trust you. The trust is the hardest thing to get. Everyone can know you. Yeah, I saw you on YouTube. You said some cool stuff. Okay, like you? Well, you seem like a jackleg. Okay, so I don't really like you. I don't think I do with you. I mean, you're pretty hard on guys. I'm not gonna go. Yeah, maybe you're just but the trust. Why would they trust you? Why would someone trust you with that stuff? I mean, I'll be in it, and then that's our goal, right? Now, here's the challenge. You have to get those three things before they become a customer. Right? Yeah. So here's the thing with the way you build your business, Andrew, is your referrals will emphasize the trust aspect. Yes. Okay? Because again, you've built it that way. So that's how a new customer is usually going to hear from someone else or read it in reviews, right? You got Google reviews and whatever you've got, right? So, but they're going to talk about the trust factor. Okay? And why that's important, because it's easy to say, them. It's easy to kind of like someone. I like some people that don't turn out to be great people, okay, but they're likable. He's a nice guy. Never have him on my team, but I like him. He's a nice guy, okay. So there's a difference, right? But the trust thing, that's where it's at. What do they compliment you? Yeah, go ahead, man. Do whatever you got to do. In your house. I mean, that's a new level, right? And imagine you take that whether you're outside cutting the grass or inside in the home.
That's right. And I actually tell customers, if you can't trust us, then we can't work for you. It's just that simple. We will not do work for you if you don't trust us. And again, sometimes that takes time to build trust. Sometimes it's one or two services, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes, man, it might take a year, 2 years. I mean, it is building trust is hard. And you know what the crazy thing about building trust is? All it takes is one bad experience and it's all gone.
Yep.
That's what
Right.
that's
So,
probably what gives me most anxiety.
right, right. So here's the thing. So you talk about trust, and let's break down a few elements of trust, okay? One of the simplest things you can do to start building trust, and most people screw this up, is show up when you say you're going to show
Oh,
up.
that's a good one.
Be on time, right? Be on time. If you're not on time, you are fracturing the trust, okay? Because if you don't value their time, okay, well, they're certainly
right.
not going to value yours. Okay,
Correct.
but there's going to be a trust factor. I think that's a big, simple first step. And even in my book, I wrote all these fundamentals that like are so stinking obvious, but no one does them.
Yeah.
Things like on time is late, right?
Well, it
On
might
time
not
is
be
late.
to their,
We
it
get
might
that.
not be on purpose, right? I had a lunch meeting yesterday and we were talking about why some people don't show up when they say they're going to show up. It's not because they don't want to, it's because they're so disorganized. They're so disorganized, they
Right.
don't know what's
Well,
coming and going. And that's key,
well,
man.
here's what I tell my kids, because they always ask, "Well, Dad, why do you wear a watch?" Because a lot of kids don't want to go, because I want people to know I value time.
Oh, that's good.
That's why I wear a watch.
That's
People
good.
know I value time, and I am an on-time guy.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
I'm an early guy all the time.
I know that's right.
Some people
I
aren't.
know.
Now,
Yeah.
if you're disorganized and everything else, and you can't get there, okay, again, that's a character issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Character goes towards trust. Character goes towards trust. Okay, like I
So
can be disorganized.
disorganization is a character trait?
Absolutely. Absolutely
Wow.
it is. Because
Okay.
here's the thing. Because if you're so disorganized, you're going to miss an appointment. Here's why it's a character trait. Because the appointment isn't important enough to you. You're letting disorganization keep you from a literal appointment.
Yeah, gotcha.
Disorganization happens with day to day and this, and my desk is messy and I forgot to, whatever, clean the garage, whatever that is, right? I forgot to tell so-and-so. But that, when you've got an appointment, okay, and you've booked someone else's time, that being on time is that, if that's not your number one, this is obviously this is my opinion, my
Okay.
viewpoint, but if that's not your number one priority, you're damaging the trust factor.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Because if I
Wow.
can't trust you to show up, okay, I can't trust you to show up. Well, Andrew said he'd be here at 9, but it's 9:30, so yeah, he should roll in sometime. I have
That's
one of
right.
my best friends. He has this thing he says. I figured out his code. Okay. If you say, "Hey man, we got this thing going on, I need to be, you want to come, you want to be there?" He goes, "I'll pop by." Okay. That means absolutely he's not coming. If he says I'll pop by, I learned after, and we've been friends like 30 years now. Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm
I
like,
love it.
okay, if he says I'll be there, he will be there. If he
Uh-huh.
says I'll pop by, just scratch him off the list. He's
That's
off the
right.
guest list.
Yeah, that's
Don't
right.
make any food for him. Okay. He's not coming. And he
Now-
lives up to it. So,
now, one
we all
thing-
got commitment issues,
One thing I would recommend, and this has helped me in my personal calendar, but also with our service business, is I try not to give exact times. I want to put myself in a place to where there's an expectation, where there's a little wiggle room just in case things don't work out the way they should.
Yep.
So
Yep. And I think
I'll
that's
never
great.
forget. I had a guy once, another one of those one-day teammates. He applied for the job. He said he had a driver's license, but he didn't. So part of the requirements for this position is that you have a good driver's license. And so we're in our interview process. We actually he made it to the third interview, which is a ride along. And so because I like to sometimes be with the guys if we have to pop under a crawl space, just so they can see it, because I don't want to waste their time, right? I want them to get exposed to some of the issues so that they know what they're getting into. Well, so we're working, and this is where I find out he doesn't have a driver's license. And I was like, well, man, you're going to need your driver's license before you start here. He goes, I'll have my driver's license by Friday. And it was like Wednesday. And I was like, I don't think you should be telling me you're going to have your driver's license by Friday. He's like, no, it's my word. He goes, it's my word. I was like, whoa, man. Now he's taking it to the next level. And I was like, well, man, at Dixon Pest, we don't make promises, because that sets us up, right? If we make a promise and we can't keep it, we're not going to serve our customers. He's like, fine. He's like, it's not my word. It's not my word. And he's getting all crazy. obviously I realized he was kind of a hothead, but I kid you not, we had a good, we separated on good terms, it just wasn't a good fit. He texted me 2 weeks later and goes, "Hey, by the way, I got my driver's license." You know what I'm saying? And so I'm sitting here
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
do I send him with a little jab? I'm like, "Oh, what happened to Friday?" Right?
yeah.
But he
Wrong,
in his
wrong
mind,
Friday.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's kind of what I wish I had a moment with him because he was a young man. He was probably 18, 19 years old. It would have been, I was trying to just talk to him about expectations, but he was so on the defense. You know what I'm saying? And so he did give his driver's license. So kudos to him. But at the end of the day, it was 2 weeks away from when he was going to give me his word that he was going to have it. So that I just think we be careful what we tell our customers. We create a system that creates, that wiggle room so everyone can meet in the middle, right? So
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's what you did. Again, when we talk about systems, that's part of it. That buffer,
yeah,
that's
buffer.
an industry norm.
Yeah,
right.
that's
But
right.
it's an industry norm. Now,
What about the
now
day
it used
buffer?
to be, 8 to
Eight to eight.
Yeah, or the 8 to 12 even. What
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
between
yeah,
8
yeah.
and 12? I go, a
Yeah,
4-hour window? I go,
yeah,
the cable
yeah.
company always did that, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I love it. And I think you need to have that, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're in, like I'm talking about, so here's where it's different. Okay. So that like operations. Okay. So your guys are going home to home. They're treating for pest control. They're doing totally. You should have a buffer, 30-minute, whatever you decide. The one you don't be late to, you don't have a buffer is your sales appointment. If I'm calling on you for the first time, right, and you say, "Hey, come out, look, I got rodents, I got this." Okay, fine. I'll be there, 10 o'clock on Thursday. Okay. You show up at 10 o'clock on Thursday. That you don't get a buffer to me,
Yeah.
right? That's first impression stuff, right?
That's right.
not operations, right?
Yeah.
You're setting a precedent, right? And you
Yeah.
put that in there. So that's a great clarification. And I think the ideal thing is your operations, you got to have the buffer.
You're saying two separate protocols then is what you're saying? So
Yep.
like you maybe have a
Yep.
protocol
Exactly.
for like the day. Oh, okay. Okay. So what would
You know what I mean?
what
Because your guy's operating, because the guy's operating, again, you might go to a house, you might get Chatty Cathy, right? And they're trying to get out and the lady keeps talking and all of a sudden 15 minutes has gone by and they haven't learned how to cut the conversation off and
That's
get
right.
to the thing yet. You know the drill on
Yeah.
that. Or,
Oh, yeah,
or they
man.
ran into additional problems. They
That's right.
discovered termites. Oh, I got to take
Yeah,
some pictures. I got to do
yeah.
this. I got to do that.
Every day.
Right? So that's operational. And that's how
Okay.
you build your system. You have buffers in there. That's how you can
Gotcha.
actually plan a real day because you can't have
Okay.
back to back because it never happens, right?
Never happen.
But now you're making the sales call. Okay. You have to really respect their time.
Yeah.
You're coming, you've warmed the lead. It's know, like, and trust.
Okay.
And if they don't, your customers are one thing, they've got that, but now you're trying to build that trust and that timeliness. Again, the character aspect of time is really important.
Yeah. What do you think about those companies that say if we're late, it's free or something like that? Have you ever seen some like plumbing companies and stuff like that?
Well, go
I
back to
don't know how they
Domino's
do
Pizza.
it.
That's how they built their whole business. But Domino's Pizza built their whole business that way. Remember, 30
I
minutes
didn't know
or it's
that.
free.
Okay.
People forget because they've been around a long time now, but that's how they built.
Yeah.
Because they put them by colleges, right? So they got
Yep.
college kids who were hungry. They didn't have the
Yep.
best pizza. They didn't have anything. It was pizza, but it was fast.
Yep. That's right.
Everyone was hoping they'd be 32 minutes and not 30, right? Because they wanted
I
the
know.
free
I'm
pizza.
sitting here.
So
Yeah.
think of the
That's
mind.
right.
Think of the mind of an 18-year-old, right? I mean, they barely got money for pizza as it is. You know what I mean? So, but they built a multi-billion-dollar business off of that. So I think that is
Absolutely.
I just think it's important to have that in there, And the ones who do say if we're not do it free, that's an individual company thing. Like, what are you actually giving away?
That's
So
true.
if I say if I'm a plumber and I have $170 show up fee, don't know what the problem is, but I'm going to charge you $170 and we take it off the price of the job. Okay. If you show up late, there's something you say, I'll waive the $170.
Gotcha.
Right? You could do
Okay.
something like that, right?
That's
like
right.
if we're late, we're going to do that. Now, again, it has to be, is this guy a straight salesman? He got the plumber doing the sales.
Okay.
Because if you have
that's
your
true.
operator doing the sales as well as a lot do, then you want to have the buffer like you do.
Yeah, you have
Okay?
to. That's
So,
exactly.
and
You're
I know
exactly right.
I know we're diagnosing here, right?
Yeah,
So we're
that's good.
diagnosing here a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay. Because one thing, just from a sales and marketing standpoint, we're all trying to differentiate ourselves. And if we can't differentiate ourselves, what are we all fighting for? Price, the lowest
Price.
price,
Yeah,
right?
that's definitely not.
We're all stuck. Yeah, you don't want that. So that's why the way you operate, what you offer, how you offer, the timeliness, okay, that's value to people. If your average home is, $450,000 you treat and everything else, and it's a married couple, double income. I mean, these people are pulling home 300,000-400,000 a year or whatever they're doing.
Yeah,
They value their time in a very big way. That's
that's
why
right.
you're doing the pest control, not them. That's why you're cutting the grass and not them. Because they make a heck of a lot more in an hour than you're going to charge them to cut the grass.
Well, and they're extremely
And so
busy.
it's important
They're probably hardly never home.
that exactly that's the point, right? But because they have to maximize their time. We all got
That's
the
right.
same amount, as they say, right? So
Yep, yep.
as a business, we have to. You always got to be customer centric. You have to think what they're thinking, not what you think. You don't speak to them like a pest control guy with all this lingo they use you talk to them about, well, I'm killing bugs. You're not naming the 9 bugs they have. Okay.
That's right.
I guess you could do it. I get it. But you know what I'm saying?
Depends.
They get it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Killing bugs, it goes really straight.
Right. Right. Just pest free.
Yeah.
Pest free. That's a great term. We'll make this place pest free. Okay. Everything but your cat and dog is a pest. And your children. Your children are not pests either. But this is so good, Andrew. I love you're able to share kind of these 2 journeys from the landscape into the pest control, really creating the pest solution stuff, how you transition. And really, I love that we spent all this time on people. Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, this is the lifeblood. But some of the best things you brought up were really strategic vision, really huge. And we talk about that, on a number of different occasions on this show. But understanding that you have to know where you're going. No one's going to follow a lost leader.
Yeah.
Okay? If you don't know where you're going, and sometimes you just got to go even when you don't and figure it out as you go. But
Yeah.
people know a bad leader, and they're not going to follow a bad leader. And it all starts at the top. So if you've got this figured out where you're going to go, you can create the systems and processes. People can jump in because you know what people want to do every day? They want to win.
That's right.
Okay. If you can't show them what success looks like on the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year, how are they supposed to operate? How can you have expectations of them doing what you want them to do if they don't know what winning is? If we're playing football, we're playing soccer, we know where the goal is, right? The one that we're supposed to kick our ball into, right? So we know where we're going. We know how to get there. We know what to do when we get there, right?
Yeah, you
we
can
know how to
measure
win.
that.
We got to score more than the other guy, right? Measure and trackable, right? So I just like that we hit on all this stuff. This has been really, I think, really informative, though, especially just starting a service business, or if you've been in it for a few years, people kind of get a little lost. Because they're in, like you did. Yeah, I've been through 30 people. I've been through 20 people. I've been through 40 people. I had a whole year, 1 year, I had multiple crews I went through.
Yeah.
In 1 year, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it was 2,000. It was horrible. 2,000. It was horrible. So many people. Anyone who didn't have a job didn't want to work then. Okay, is intentional. I get 7 guys that say they're going to show up in the morning. I say, bring your lunch and boots. We'll get started. Nobody shows up, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And the ones that did,
You got to ask 14,
but you had to
so
have
you get 2.
Right?
Yeah, you get 2 out of 14.
Yeah. So it's just, so we all got the great stories, but yeah, I want to wrap this up, Andrew.
Yeah.
So I know you're out of South Carolina, right? So kind of let's get a website out there. There might be someone local in the area that you can probably help, or if they want to follow you, if they're going to see you on social media, stuff like that. I mean, you're a guy who's done it a lot. You've created a really, really cool business, and you've really put in the time, overcome a lot of challenges. So how can they do that? What do they got?
Find me. I mean, DixonPestSolutions.com. Yeah, I mean, you can Google review Dixon Pest Solutions. We're pretty much in the upstate. So if someone's not familiar with South Carolina, there's the upstate region as opposed to like the lower area like Charleston and stuff like that. So as you get closer up towards North Carolina, which is it's blowing up in Greenville, Spartanburg. So a lot of people love this area. But the one thing if I could just make, well, I was going to say, I really appreciate that little tidbit on the difference between growth and scale. So that's going to be something I'm going to take from this conversation, because I think as we build that foundation culturally and systems, I think that is really the entrepreneur's path, is what does it look like to take that and take it to the next level? So I appreciate that. That's good, man.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
good
it's
stuff.
a challenge. It's a challenge, but good. Always willing to help you out, Andrew.
Hey,
always,
bring it, man.
Always
Bring
available.
it. Bring it.
It's been a good amount of years, man, but it's been great to watch you grow, put the
Yeah.
stuff together, figure it out, man. You're a hard charger, and I just love it. It's always a joy to work with you. And for taking the time today, I completely appreciate you just dedicating this time for us to share with our audience. And until the next STS podcast, we'll see you guys then. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.